Welcome Minnesota high school football officials to the 2020 season. It is going to be an unusual season for sure, and we appreciate your efforts and diligence in working through the various changes that seem to change and evolve by the second, by the minute, by the day. So really appreciate your work. We're going to go through all of the rule changes and considerations as well as mechanics changes and highlights, and we will go through all of those in this presentation. And if you have any questions or concerns after viewing this presentation, get in touch with one of your coordinators, and we will respond to your questions as soon as we can. As we just mentioned, it's going to be an unusual season, and we're happy that we have those of you who can assist us with this year. We know that there's going to be several of you that just don't feel comfortable coming back at this point, and we support and understand that. I think it's critical at this time that we need to recruit and retain the best that we can, knowing that we're going to be a little short, and don't overdo it. For those that are working, don't try to work 2 games a day and work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I know that you love football and love officiating, but we don't want to overdo it. We want to keep you going through the long term, through the end of the season. So just take good care of yourself. Follow all the precautions. Don't forget to eat right and stretch and all that kind of stuff. Because it's going to be a short season. There's not a lot of wiggle room. So anything we can do to help stay safe, I think, is a good thing to do. So work through your assigner, regional coordinator. They can help with rule changes, mechanics, assistance and assignments, those pieces. So work through them. They're a good resource. We're going to cover the rule adjustments and mechanics for 2020 in this presentation. So again, if you have any questions, reach out to your assigner, charter clinician, regional coordinator, those folks, and they can help you or assist and get answers where needed. Okay, let's talk about some rule modifications and considerations. When we're talking about these, I'm going to cover them in the order that they would be placed in the NFHS rulebook, and not necessarily by requirement or consideration. So I'll address those as we go, whether it's something that's going to be required or modified, but they are in the order that we would find them in the NFHS rulebook. So first one we're looking at here, playing fields need to be marked according to rule, including the restricted areas, team boxes, and restraining lines. It's going to be especially important that coaches, players, others stay out of the restricted area when the ball is live, and at other times, players, coaches, sideline personnel need to be physically distanced, which is why we're going to extend the restricted area and team box to the 10-yard line on both sides of the field. There's really no reason to be in the restricted area during the play. That's already the rule, but we need to be cognizant of that and have remind coaches to not be there so that we can work safely. So the line being 2 yards, minimum of 2 yards from the field of play for the restricted area, that's still the rule, still in place. Talked about the team box extending. Only school authorized personnel are allowed to be down there. That's not something officials need to monitor, but the schools need to be aware that only people that belong on the field should be out there. And then no individuals are going to be allowed inside the restraining lines, including the chain crew and ball people. So when we're down inside the 10 and around the end zone, we have a restraining line. We shouldn't have anyone inside of that outside of the game officials and the players. The coaches and subs can be allowed in the restricted area between plays. That's typical. But other than that, live ball, etc., they should not be there. And then finally, only players and game officials on the field of play. We talked about that. And that's been the case. We've been pretty lenient on that, but I would say with this year, we need to have constant reminders for the coaches and others that they can't be in the restricted area and they can't be on the field. Footballs will need to be approved by the back judge or the referee. That's been typical. You might see more footballs presented just so we can work on cleaning, sanitizing, those kinds of things. But regardless, any football that's going to be used in the contest needs to be approved by the back judge or the referee. The ball should be clean and sanitized throughout the contest. The officials don't need to worry about that, but we're hoping the schools can implement a plan for that. Ball holders should maintain distancing of 6 feet. They shouldn't come onto the field. They can just toss you the ball from 6 feet or more, and hopefully that will help with that. The kicker should retrieve the kicking tee. This is a recommendation, not a requirement. I'm just trying to limit contact points on that. And then the chain crew shall consist of 3 individuals, and it's recommended that auxiliary chains not be used. Both of these are recommendations. We hope the schools do that. But regardless of how many they use, they should maintain distance, have a mask, those kinds of things. And then finally, players, coaches, and other personnel shall maintain distancing from the chain crew and allow them to perform their duties. So we've had issues with that in the past, not allowing the chain crew to move freely and get to where they need to go. Hopefully this year we'll see more distancing from the chain crew so that they can perform their duties. We're asking the game clock and play clock operators, if we have one, to meet with the referee, line judge, and or back judge approximately 30 minutes prior to the contest on the field while maintaining distancing, just to make sure that we have our expectations clear about what we're looking for. The second part we don't really need to worry about as officials. Third part, one captain is allowed at the coin toss while maintaining distancing. We're not going to do handshakes with the captains, either between them or with the officials. The referee and the umpire should meet with the head coach of the home team first, and then the visiting team while maintaining distancing. In future years, every member of the crew will meet with the coaches prior to the game, but for this year, referee and umpire only. And then communication with the game officials is going to be limited to the head coach only, and that really should be the case most years. And I know we try to work with assistants as best we can, but we're trying to limit the amount of conversation and contact points to the best of our abilities, and always maintaining distancing and masking as recommended. All of the NFHS uniform and equipment rules are going to apply unless otherwise noted. And we've had issues with this in the past. We told the coaches in the online rules meeting that we hope they can help officials out with this. Officials don't want to be uniform police. They want to just concentrate on their safety and officiating the game effectively. So we did remind the coaches about that, but this is a piece that you should know, that all of those rules that are in the rule book will apply unless noted. We have a policy for special recognitions and commemorative patches that's on our main website. The schools have that. If they have something that is outside the prescribed limits of the rule book as it relates to this, the school just needs to provide a letter. It's not necessarily from us, just one that indicates that their school administration has approved that. Cloth face coverings are permissible for athletes, coaches, officials, chain crew. We're recommending that masks be worn as much as possible, but during competition, those participating, particularly players and officials, it may be difficult to wear a mask. Just because you're breathing hard and those kinds of pieces. So if you don't wear a mask, that is okay. They do have masks available that cover a whistle and whistle guards and those kinds of things. So we'd recommend considering those if you can. Plastic shields that cover the entire face that are not integrated into the face mask are illegal, and you can't have tint in those. That rule hasn't changed. We seem to have a few coaches that think that we can have those with a doctor's note, and that's just not the case. Finally, we've instructed players, teams about tooth and mouth protectors, that they really need to limit the contact to the tooth and mouth protectors, just to keep saliva and such off of their fingers as much as possible. So we're asking them to limit contact, but it's going to be very challenging for them to keep it in their mouth for the duration of the contest, but we're asking them to limit contact with that if possible. Periods can be shortened at any time by mutual agreement of the opposing coaches and the referee. That's been the case, but just a reminder that we can do that, and that's probably a good consideration to take in for this year. The running clock can be instituted at any time by mutual agreement. Just make sure we work that out. When it comes to the mercy rule piece, our mercy rule or 35-point rule policy is still in place. But I would encourage coaches and the officials to work something out that minimizes risk, both from a physical safety and COVID, both for this year especially. And we'll look to revamp and tweak that policy in the future. But for this year, running clock, periods, all those are on the table as options, and you can work that out with the two coaches. Players and coaches are being asked to remain on the field at intermission. I would say the same about the officials. I would encourage us not to go into a locker room or an enclosed space. I know that's not what we've typically done, but I think if we can stay in an open air area where we can distance, I think that would be the best plan. Referees, you don't need to hold the ball overhead to indicate the end of the period this year. We've asked them, this is a recommendation, we've recommended that all conferences and timeouts take place near the sideline. That way we're not near the other team or the officials, and we can distance in our sideline area. This is not a requirement, this is a recommendation. And then this is a requirement for this year. Measurements should be limited to fourth down plays only. If it's second down in inches and the referee indicates it's short or says it's a first down, that judgment is going to be final, and we're not measuring, just to limit the amount of times that we have those other folks on the field. So that's for this year, measurements limited to fourth down only. The final rule change modification for this year is a rule change for this year only. We may continue with this in the future, but it is for this year only. So we're looking at resolving tied games or overtime. We're going to have one captain at the coin toss with the referee and the umpire, just like we did at the beginning of the game. The choices for the winner are going to be the same as they've been in the past. So offense, defense, or end of the field, and you can't defer your choice. The loser of the toss shall exercise the remaining option. So if the winner of the toss chooses defense, then the loser of the toss is going to choose end of field. The choices will be alternated for remaining overtime periods. So if we go to a third overtime, the winner of the initial toss will select offense or defense. And that's it. We're not going to change end of field. We're going to stay at the same end of the field for the entire overtime. So the teams will have the choice of offense or defense as we move into remaining overtime periods. If we get to an even numbered overtime period, the team that lost the toss will have the choice. If we're in an odd numbered overtime period, the winner of the initial toss will have the choice of offense or defense. If we get to a third overtime and we are still tied, the offensive team must attempt a 2-point try from the 3-yard line. They can kick from there, but it's not going to be worth any points. So if they want to score points, they need to go for a 2-point attempt from the 3-yard line. They get one crack at it unless it's extended by penalty. Outside of that, they get one try. The game will continue until the team scores a greater number of points, just like always. And then all other NFHS overtime rules will apply. So on the first two overtimes, it will be goal to go from the 10-yard line. So we won't have chains at all throughout the overtime, and all of those other overtime rules apply. So again, this is a change for this year. Maybe a change in the future, but make sure you review this with your crew so you're all set in case we have an overtime game. Okay, now that we've talked about the rule changes and modifications, let's talk about some general COVID safety considerations before getting into the mechanics for this year. First, it seems obvious, but if you're not feeling well, stay home. I know that you want to officiate, give the kids your best, hang out with the crew. We all miss that. I get that. But if you're not feeling well, just stay home. You're not doing anybody any favors by coming and working sick. We're not going to be at our best. Even if we don't have COVID, we're not going to be at our best. So if you're not feeling well, stay home. Come dressed and ready to work. Don't expect locker rooms or other confined spaces. We're going to mitigate risk, lower that chance of spread by coming ready to work, work the game, and then go home so you can get cleaned up and those kinds of pieces. Limit conversations and contact to only those that require necessary communication. So if you need to communicate with your crew, fine. If you need to communicate with the head coach or a player, also fine. But try to limit those to situations where that's necessary. Referees, if you're wearing a mask, which is totally fine and acceptable to do, if you have an announcement, if you could just lower your mask to make the announcement, that looks more professional and allows everyone to hear you, especially if there are PAs or mics that are being used. Finally, we're recommending electronic communication. So if you have Midland type radios to use, that will be really helpful to limit the amount of face-to-face contact we need to have with our crewmates and potentially with coaches, because we can communicate very effectively, quickly, using electronic communication. Remember, those are the wavelengths of those things go out to the public in a lot of cases, so just be careful about what you say on those. But we're encouraging the use of those for this year and beyond, just to eliminate unnecessary contact and close proximity. Now might be a good time for a break if you haven't taken one. I know we're 17 minutes into this presentation, but a lot of details and pieces to cover for this year. Really appreciate your time and commitment. I know it's a lot, but I'm excited to get back out there. I hope you are too, and hopefully these modifications and adjustments will help us do so in the safest way that we can. So yeah, if you have time for a break, this might be a good time. But first piece, game officials, uniform and equipment considerations. Again, electronic whistles are allowed. Not a lot of supply out there, so if you can get one, great. They're different to use, and we could have inadvertent whistles a lot more this year, but that's just the way it goes. If you want to use one of those, totally fine. Try to find a whistle or electronic whistle that carries outside. Some different brands are on the slide there. Cloth face coverings, again, are permissible. Not required, but permissible and recommended if you can make it work. We also have whistle covers and masks that allow for whistles underneath the mask that you can use. Gloves, long sleeve shirts, all permissible for this year. And it seems obvious, but don't share uniforms, towels, other apparel. If you're short something, we'll just do our best to get by, but let's try to limit sharing of contact points if we can. We talked about this earlier. Referee and umpire should meet with the coaches. In future years, it'll be everyone, but for this year, referee and umpire only. Approximately 30 minutes before kickoff, like in the past. Meet with the home team coach first, so if there are any protocols or adjustments that need to be made, you will be able to communicate that with the visiting team coach. Again, for the coin toss, limit attendees to the referee and the umpire, and then one designated representative from each team. Typically, we can have 4, but we're not going to have that many this year. No handshakes, no fist bumps, no any of that. You can tell them a few general topics, but let's get on with the toss, get their choices, and then get them on back to their team. So maintain distancing when we're doing our pregame responsibilities, when we're meeting with line to gain, clock operators, ball people, etc. And then for the overtime procedure, again, we're going to use that same procedure that we used for the start of the contest. One captain, one representative there, and always trying to maintain distancing when we're doing our duties. We still should be out looking at plays and players during the pregame time, looking for uniform issues, watching formations, kickers, and their capabilities. All the typical things we should be doing in a pregame, we can still do. We just need to watch our distancing when we're doing those things. We talked about several of these items in the rule change part of this presentation, but in future years, all crew members will meet with the coaches. For this year, referee and umpire only. And then line judges, you should meet with the game clock operator. Referee, you can too, again, approximately 30 minutes prior to the game. And back judge, you'll meet with the visible play clock operator if there is one. And just remember to outline your expectations about signals and what to look for and timing. And then finally, make sure they understand how you will communicate if something needs to be adjusted, whether it's through a coach or however that's going to work. So make sure you work that out with them prior to the game. The first substantial officiating mechanic change for this year has the line judge and linesman switching sidelines at halftime. This change was put into motion quite a while ago. It's in the PDF supplement to your Mechanics Illustrated that you should have received last year. It's available for download and print from the Arbiter Central Hub. New officials, we're working on getting those Mechanics Illustrated out to you. The rest of you can use the PDF as a supplement to that Mechanic Illustrated that you have. We've had conversations with other levels of play that employ this mechanic just from a consistency of communication and access to coaches is what we're looking at. And from a risk minimization standpoint, we've also inquired with those levels, and they've stated that they would not employ this mechanic if they felt that it increased exposure risk to the officials. So we're going to continue with this mechanics change from that perspective. We'll continue to monitor games as they go to see if we need to make adjustments, but we will plan to continue with this mechanics change for this year. Line judges, you're going to start with the chains, so make sure you meet with the chain crew prior to the game just to introduce yourself and let them know about the mechanics change so they know that they'll see two different people during the course of the game. Linesmen, you will stick with the chains or with the down box. If we do go to overtime, you won't switch for the rest of the game, but you will start opposite the chains in the first half and then move to the chain side for the second half. Okay, let's talk the mechanics of this change. First, free kicks, our mechanics aren't going to change. We're going to be at the pylon to begin. Whether we are the linesman or line judge, doesn't matter. Our mechanics will not change. And again, we should adjust to the kicker. We can move up if we need to, but for the most part, we should default to the pylon and then react accordingly. Field goals and tries, our mechanics won't change. We're still going to be a yard off the sideline. We'll pinch at the end of the play when it's over, and outside of that, mechanics will not change. Punts, this is really the only place that we have a mechanical change. So if you are the line judge position, not the person, you will release at the snap on punts. So if you're the linesman who is opposite the chains in the first half and we have a punt, you are going to release at the snap. So it's the position and not the person. That's really the only real change for mechanics from one position to the next outside of having the chains. So free kicks, field goals, tries, no change on mechanics. Punts, line judge position will release at the snap. On running plays, our mechanics will not change. You're going to have the keys on your side of the field like you typically would, and you will have lead blocks or snap tackle back or whatever progression that you typically would have. Nothing changes regardless of the side of the field that you will be on. Passing plays for the line of scrimmage folks, not so much of a change. Again, same keys and those kinds of things. But back judges, if we need to figure out which side to key to in an even formation, then we will key to the line judge, the person, and not the side of the field. So If it's in the first half, we're going to key to the line judge who's opposite or on the chain side rather, and then we will key to that line judge when they move to their typical position in the second half. So that's how we'll do it as back judges, but for line of scrimmage officials, passing plays, our mechanics should really be the same. And then for penalty enforcement, umpires, you should walk with the linesman, the person. So first half, linesman will be opposite the chains. We should walk with them to confirm penalty enforcement. And then when the linesman is on the chain side in the second half, we'll confirm with them. Of course, this can be adjusted if the linesman is occupied with a coach or something else. But typically, umpires should walk off the penalty enforcement and confirm with the linesman. It will be a little bit of an adjustment for our line of scrimmage officials, but we're confident that you are up to the task, up to the challenge. Most of us work the chains at some point in a JV game or 10th grade game, so it will be a little bit of an adjustment, but nothing you haven't done before. And again, not really substantial mechanics changes or coverage changes. It's typically just the punts releasing. That is the biggest change, for mechanics and coverage. Otherwise, it should be pretty much the same, except you're working with the chains one half and not in the other half. And the only other piece to consider or to think about is our communication with our crewmates, particularly with the referee, reminding them if we have 5 yards to get us a first down or those kinds of pieces, which line judges aren't typically used to, but we'll get used to as we go throughout the year. The other substantial mechanics change for this year is the umpire will be in the offensive backfield except for scoring kicks. This is a change for this year only at this point. We will evaluate the mechanic after this year and see if it's something we want to keep long term. But for this year, we wanted to try to get the umpire away from players a little bit more, try to provide them a little bit more space, and putting them in the backfield will provide that opportunity. So we'll evaluate this mechanic, see how it goes, and see if it's something we want to do for the future. But our initial position is 12 to 14 yards deep, straight back from the tight end position. Even if there's not a tight end, we'll be straight back from there. That will give us a good reference and view of the players we need to see. Free kicks, our mechanics will not change. We are going to line up on the 50, just like we always have, 2 yards off. Once the kickers cross your face, we'll come onto the field in a J-type shape, and then we'll let players pass our face if there's a long return. We're not responsible for the goal line. The back judge will be responsible. Punts, same thing. We've been in the offensive backfield for punts for some time now, so no real change there. About 2 to 3 yards deep of the punter, off the edge of the tight end type position, and that should put us in good shape to assist. Spotting the ball on an initial series or the start of a series, you'll get the football from the side of the field that you need to, put the ball down in its spot, and then look for the referee to make sure that everything is all set, and you can back up to your position once the referee blows that series ready for play, and then you can back up into your position. And remember, we have our same responsibilities as always, counting players, etc. So that's how we're going to do spotting the ball for starting a series. We'll get into spotting in other situations here shortly, but make sure that we make eye contact with the referee and we're all set, and then he or she will blow it ready for play, and you can back into your position. So once we're back in our initial position, our keys will be the center, the left guard, and the left tackle, and we can also assist with the tight end if there's one on our side. But typically we're center guard, but in this alignment we are going to take the center, the left guard, and left tackle, and then referees, you are going to take the right guard and right tackle, and you don't have to look across the formation any longer with this mechanic. So again, still counting offensive players with the referee, We don't have to be in sync with them. It's nice, but we don't have to be. Just make sure we get a count in. We are going to back up to our position. Don't turn your back on the ball, because if they snap the ball and you have your back to the ball or the play, there's a possibility of injury, and we don't want that. So make sure you're backing up. If you're not quite into your position when the ball is snapped, we as a crew need to shut it down and not let the play continue to make sure that you don't get injured during that play. But we should back up to our spot. And those are our initial keys: center, left guard, left tackle. And we always should keep our pre-snap routine going. If we have a running play to the left-hand side, we're going to move our vision to front side blocks. This is going to be a change from what you've done in the past, where you tend to stay backside a little longer. But we're going to go to the front side and look at lead blocks when a running play goes to the left. On a running play up the middle, we will go to point of attack, and that's what we really should do as umpires in a normal alignment, is go to point of attack and look at blocks at that area. And then if we have a running play to the right-hand side on the referee side, we should stick backside a little longer than we would normally, looking at left guard, center, right guard, particularly looking for low blocks and chops. So that's the progression, and it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment just to figure out when you transition and bump to the next threat that you're looking at. So if you see a potential threat for foul, don't pass it, stick with it, and then once you've cleared that block, you can move on to the next one. And that's how you should work on transitions. Again, it's going to be a work in progress, but we think you'll have a pretty good look at holding, illegal blocks, hands to the face, etc., from that position back there, while maintaining space and safety from crossing routes. On passing plays, our mechanics will be the same as other plays, where our initial keys: center, left guard, left tackle, and then go to a threat as the play develops. So if we have a QB rolling to the left, we're going to back straight up, let the QB cross our face, and we're going to continue to officiate our primary area, which is center, left guard, left tackle. If that quarterback crosses your face, referees, you're going to go with them. And quarterback's going to be your primary no matter where it is on the field. So that's more typical to how the NFL does it. But we're going to back up, let the referee take the quarterback, and we're going to officiate point of attack and blocks in front of the quarterback if he rolls to the left. If we have a straight drop back, a quarterback draw, those kind of pieces, then we should officiate our primary area, but then our vision should shift to threat. So if we have a double team block, less of a chance of a threat, we can get off of that. If we see a blitz or an opening where somebody can come through real fast, we want to shift our vision to that, because there's more likely to have a foul there, whether it's a hold or a low block, just because that's going to catch the offense off guard, and that's when you have the potential for foul. So that's where our vision should shift. If we have a quarterback rolling to the right, then just like a running play to the right, we're going to stick backside longer, left guard, center, right guard, and pick up blocks in that area. When we're talking about ineligibles downfield, this is going to be almost entirely a line of scrimmage call now with the umpire in the backfield. And it probably should have been anyways, but line of scrimmage officials, just be aware that umpires are not going to get ineligible downfield fouls. This needs to come from the line of scrimmage, and especially the opposite wing of a rollout. They should be really aware of that piece. If there's hits on the quarterback, roughing the passer, targeting, those kinds of pieces, we're not opposed to having a flag down on those, although that's going to be primary to the referee. But if you see a face mask or a nasty hit on the quarterback and you have a good look at it, feel free to throw on that and have a conversation with the referee on that. Penalty enforcement, our mechanics aren't going to change. So we talked about it earlier. Find the linesman, the person, mark it off with them, confirm, and then put the ball down. So nothing will change as it relates to penalty enforcement mechanics. Okay, let's talk about reverse mechanics and spotting the ball throughout the game. So first, reverse mechanics. If we have an interception, fumble return, that sort of thing, we are going to officiate inside out and look for blocks at the point of attack and assist that way. We are not responsible for the goal line. So if they pass you, it's just like a kickoff. You're going to let players pass you and officiate inside out, and the referee will be responsible for goal line along with the line of scrimmage officials. So nothing really changes that way other than we're going to be looking at it from a different perspective. We aren't responsible for the goal line, and we are just going to officiate point of attack and really pick up illegal blocks, late hits, those kinds of things around the pile. So that's our focus on reverse mechanics. And then spotting the ball with time not being a factor, deliberate movements, but we don't need to run like our rear end is on fire, to get to the ball and get the ball down. We need to have good pacing, just like we did before. Nothing changes. Get to the inbound spot when you can. The ball will be triangled in from the back judge if it's outside the hash, and they'll get it to you. Get the ball on the ground somewhere between 28 and 32 seconds on the play clock or so. And then once you put the ball down, you're going to clear yourself from the players and then back up to your spot. We don't have a substitution rule in high school football, so you don't need to check with the referee necessarily, but make sure you back out to your spot, backpedal, and get to your spot 12 to 14 yards deep. Again, if you're not in position at the snap, let's shut the play down, and this is on the referee line of scrimmage to shut it down. Make sure your umpire is safe throughout the game. And then for spotting the ball with time as a factor, we're going to go sideline to sideline, just like we've done in the past, where if the play ends outside of the hash, we will bring it in, use crossfield mechanics, put it down, looking at the opposite wing. Don't turn around and look at the wing on the near side. Look at the wing on the opposite side who is mirroring the spot. Put the ball down, and then if you feel like you can't safely get back to the spot in the offensive backfield, by all means back up into a traditional umpire spot so that you can clear yourselves of players and allow the play to continue without holding up the play. So you absolutely have that choice if it allows you to officiate the play safely and effectively. That will do it for the rule change and mechanics consideration presentation. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I know it's a lot of information in a short amount of time. Really appreciate all of you. Minnesota has excellent officials that are true professionals, always looking to improve their craft and do what's right by the game and for the kids and give them a good experience. And that's especially true this year. Being ready to go on a short notice. And I know we have some folks that aren't going to be able to do it this year, and we will miss them, and we'll be thankful when they're able to come back when they're ready. So again, thanks to all of you for your efforts and being ready to go that first night of games. At the end of the day, let's just put ourselves in the best and safest position to officiate. So if you need to go back to the normal umpire spot on a play to be safe and to officiate best, then do that. If you need to adjust your position to be safer or to better officiate a play, then do that. That's what we're trying to do with these mechanics, is trying to put you in the best and safest position to be the most effective and efficient officials that you can be. Really concentrate on your space or your primary area. Officiating is hard enough as it is, but to try to officiate for others is very difficult. Just do your job and let everyone do their job and do it well, and we will really have a good officiated game or a well officiated game. Make it be there. That should be our mantra every year. Really true this year. We don't want game stoppers. We're trying to minimize risk. And anytime we stop the game, it's going to increase that risk a little bit. So if we can avoid stopping the game for fouls that really are ticky-tack or aren't necessary, let's hold our flag in our pocket on those. Again, very thankful for all of you. Just really proud to be associated with professionals like yourselves that just are really great and are really well thought of nationally. We have a great reputation. That's because of the outstanding work that all of you do. So with that, have a great season. Feel free to reach out to coordinators or your clinicians if you have any questions, concerns that come up. We're here to help. Enjoy the season. It's going to be short. It'll be over like that, but have a great time. Stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you in person really soon.